Hey, my loves, and welcome to our second virtual lesson of emotional support. Today, we are going to be focusing on the ABCs of behavior. What does that mean? What does that mean to you in your life? What does it mean to your environment? How do we function using the ABCs of behavior? So, without further ado, we are going to jump right into it. We are going to start with our learning objectives. The first one is I can understand that there are things that happen before and after a behavior happens. The second one is I can understand the relationship between those things and the behavior. Our schedule for today is as follows. We will start with our journal entry per our normal class. We will then go into a lesson on the ABCs of behavior, and we will end with a reflection or an exit ticket. Our journal entry for this lesson is, do you feel that you have the ability to stop a behavior before it happens? Do you feel that other people have the ability to prevent your behavior before it happens? If so, how and why? If not, why? You'll have 2 minutes to think about this journal entry, to formulate a response to this journal entry. As in the last video, on the next slide, there will be a timer that will be displayed on the screen, and once the bar is completely red, that means your 2 minutes are up and we will get back into the lesson. I know that you all had some really great responses. I wish you guys were in front of me so I could hear them all. But in the interest of time and me wanting to make sure you guys get this information, I am going to move into the ABCs of behavior. So what does ABC mean? A means antecedent. An antecedent means what happens before a behavior. B is for behavior. So that's the during, what's occurring. And then C stands for consequence. And consequence is what happens after the behavior. Now, I want to debunk a common misconception. So, something that people often think is true, and it's not always true. Consequence doesn't always mean something bad. It doesn't always mean something negative. Sometimes a consequence can be a good thing. So, if you behave in a good way, so say you follow all the norms in your classroom all week and you got all the live school points, and then you get to go to the live school party. You going to the live school party was a consequence of you doing all the things that you were supposed to do. And I would consider going to the last school party something fun and not something bad. So that is where the difference between a consequence being something bad and something good comes into play. So I just wanted to make that note so that you all understand that a consequence doesn't mean something bad. It can be, but it doesn't always mean that. Now, what teacher does not want to incorporate cartoons into their lesson? So, for this lesson, I am going to use SpongeBob as a way to help you understand ABCs of behavior. So, you're going to watch a clip right after this slide, and we're going to discuss afterwards. The behavior that we will be looking at is SpongeBob bumping into another character. When you watch this clip, I want you to pay attention to what happens before he bumps into the character and what happens afterwards. And again, we'll discuss after you view the clip.
That was me, Oh, please excuse me, sir.
Oh, well, that's quite all right, SpongeBob.
Wow, I'm getting recognized all over. Why, next thing you know, people are gonna start doing stuff like holding doors open for... Why, sir, I'm flattered.
Really? I don't smell anything.
Ah! You're on your way, kid.
Now, what happened? I don't want you to look too deeply, right? I don't want you to look too far outside of that behavior of SpongeBob bumping into the other character. What happened directly before it? What was SpongeBob doing? What happened directly after that? A few things happened after that, and you could say there was a causal effect. So what he did, him bumping into this person, caused other things to happen, and that is true. A few things happened, but what happened right after that? In the next slide, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about what the before thing was and what the after thing was. So what the A was of the ABC and what the C was, the consequence of the ABC. So what was the A? What was the antecedent? What happened before SpongeBob bumped into the other character? He wasn't looking. He was not looking in front of him when he was walking, which is unsafe. And the behavior, the dooring, the thing that we know, because I asked you guys to focus on that behavior, was that he bumped into somebody. Now, what was the consequence? What happened after that? A lot of things happened afterwards, right? So the person opened the door for him, but there was something that happened before that for that to occur. The thing that happened immediately after SpongeBob bumping into somebody was that his walk was stopped. He had to stop walking, which, if we think about it in terms of maybe he had something really important to do, or maybe he had to be to work at a certain time, and because he wasn't looking when he was walking, which caused him to bump into somebody, which then caused him to stop walking, he may have delayed something else that was potentially going to occur right after that. So how does this relate to you? How can you use this in your everyday life? The reality is, you have the ability to study what is happening before a behavior, so the antecedent, and it can also be something that causes a behavior to occur, and that is actually called a trigger. A trigger can be an antecedent, but an antecedent doesn't always have to be a trigger. So a trigger would be something like, for me, I'll give an example for myself. When my daughter talks really low, it triggers me because I've told her multiple times, you have to speak up because I can't hear you if you're talking low. So it's a trigger for me. So it triggers me to have to say to her, I need you to speak up. And then she doesn't. And then that triggers me to have to get a little louder because she didn't get loud enough. So a trigger is something that kind of causes a behavior. So you have the ability to study your behavior to figure out what those things are. And then if once you study that, you can sometimes control what is causing a behavior. So sometimes you can um, know that something is causing a behavior and you can stop yourself from being in that situation. Sometimes a trigger can be environmental, so it can just be in the place that you are in, and that is what's causing the behavior. Or it could be a person in the environment, or it could be an activity in the environment that is triggering you. And sometimes you can help solve a behavior or reduce a behavior from occurring if it's a behavior that you want to stop. You can work on just building up your tolerance. So how you can handle a situation if you know that it's something that you have to do. So sometimes schoolwork can be triggering, but if you know that you have to do schoolwork, you can prepare yourself for doing that work. And then once you've done all those things and you figure out what the behavior is, what's happening before that behavior, what's a consequence of that behavior, you can make a plan and then execute that plan. And that brings me to our exit ticket for today. So, I want you guys to think about one behavior that you want to change for whatever reason. If it's causing you conflict, if it's causing you any maybe distress. So think about this behavior, study this behavior, notice what happens before the behavior, notice what happens after the behavior. But 9 times out of 10, if it's a behavior that you want to change, what's happening after the behavior you don't like, right? So you already know what's happening after it, or you know that it's something you don't like. So you just need to figure out what that thing is and then make a plan. Find out if you need to attack this behavior in the beginning, so during the A phase, during the antecedent, the before phase, or at the end of it, the tail end of the behavior, the after phase, the consequence of it, the C portion of the behavior. And we will hopefully be able to discuss it. I enjoyed this lesson, guys, and I will be talking to you soon.